Benita Gendry never imagined that defending a stranger's child would pull her into the orbit of South Korea's most dangerous man. At an exclusive art auction filled with Seoul's elite, she noticed what everyone else pretended not to see. A little girl, no more than 7, curled beneath a marble sculpture, hands pressed over her ears as the auctioneer's voice boomed through speakers. Guests in designer suits sipped champagne and stepped around her like she was part of the decor. Her father, Kang Ji-hoon, the ice-cold heir to an empire built on secrets and shadows, stood across the hall watching his daughter with eyes that looked like they'd forgotten how to feel. When Benita knelt down and softly hummed a lullaby her grandmother used to sing, the auction hall seemed to hold its breath. She didn't know the girl hadn't responded to anyone outside her household in 2 years. She didn't know she was crossing an invisible line that no one dared approach. But when the child's trembling stopped and her tiny hand reached out to touch Benita's face, something in the cold man's chest cracked wide open. Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories TV. If this is pulling you in, hit that subscribe button right now because what comes next will change everything you thought you knew about love and loyalty. 4 weeks before that night, Benita had been sitting in her cramped apartment in Lagos, staring at rejection emails she couldn't bring herself to delete. The rent was overdue. Her phone kept buzzing with reminders about bills she couldn't pay. Everything she'd worked for as a child psychologist specializing in trauma therapy had collapsed when the clinic shut down. 6 years of helping children recover from unspeakable things, gone in a budget meeting that lasted 20 minutes. Her best friend Chioma had sent her a message that morning. Girl, there's an opportunity in Seoul International Trauma Center. They're looking for someone with your experience. The pay is triple what you were making. Say yes before you overthink it. Benita had laughed bitterly at her phone. Seoul, South Korea. A country where she didn't speak the language, didn't know the culture, and would stand out in every room she entered. It felt less like an opportunity and more like exile. But desperation has a way of making impossible choices feel inevitable. She applied that same night. The interview happened over video call 3 days later. A panel of stern-faced directors asked questions in accented English about her methods, her success rates, her philosophy on treating children who had stopped believing the world was safe. She told them about Kemi, the 8-year-old who hadn't spoken after watching her home burn down, and how 6 months of play therapy had brought her voice back. She told them about Tund, the boy who'd been so full of rage that other therapists had given up, and how teaching him to paint had given his anger somewhere to go. She told them the truth, that sometimes she failed, that some children stayed lost no matter how hard she tried, and that pretending otherwise was dishonest. The panel exchanged glances. The director leaned forward. When can you start? Benita blinked. How soon do you need me? Immediately. She laughed, surprised. I can be there in 2 weeks. The flight to Seoul was 15 hours of turbulence and second-guessing. The city hit her like a wave when she arrived. Neon signs in a language she couldn't read, technology that seemed decades ahead, and a pace of life that left her dizzy. The trauma center had arranged housing in a modest apartment in Gangnam, small but modern, with a view of glittering skyscrapers that made her feel impossibly far from home. Her supervisor, Dr. Kim Soyeon, was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes softened by smile lines. You come very highly recommended, Dr. Kim said during their first meeting. Your work with trauma survivors is impressive. I just try to meet children where they are, Benita replied. Good. That's exactly what we need here. Dr. Kim slid a folder across the desk. These are your assigned cases. 11 children, various backgrounds. Some have witnessed violence. Some have experienced abandonment. All of them have stopped trusting adults. Benita opened the folder, her heart tightening at the photographs of small faces that had learned too early that the world was cruel. I'll do everything I can. I know you will. Dr. Kim paused. There's one more thing. The center's annual charity auction is this Saturday. All senior staff are required to attend. I don't have anything appropriate to wear. We'll provide a dress. Consider it a welcome gift. Dr. Kim's expression shifted slightly. These events attract powerful people. Some of them are dangerous. Be polite, be professional, and don't draw attention to yourself. How will I know who's dangerous? You'll feel it. The night of the auction, Benita stood in front of her bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The dress the center had sent was deep emerald silk that complemented her dark skin, fitted at the waist with a flowing skirt. Her natural hair was styled in elegant twists that framed her face. Gold jewelry caught the light. She looked stunning. She felt like an imposter. Her phone buzzed with a text from Chioma. "You're going to kill it tonight. Also, stay away from anyone who looks like they could have you disappeared." Benita typed back quickly. "What does that even mean?" "You'll know when you see them. Trust your gut." That evening, a black car arrived to take her to the Shilla Hotel. The auction hall was a masterpiece of marble and glass. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over crowds of immaculately dressed guests. Servers glided through the space carrying champagne. Art pieces worth more than Benita would earn in a lifetime sat on pedestals, waiting to be claimed by whoever had the deepest pockets. Benita found a quiet corner near a sculpture garden and tried to blend into the background. She watched the social choreography, who commanded attention, who sought it, who moved through the room like they owned every inch of it. That's when she saw the little girl. She was tucked beneath a large bronze sculpture near the back of the hall. 7 years old, maybe 8. Pale skin, delicate features. Dark hair pulled back with clips that sparkled. She wore a white dress that probably cost a fortune. But her whole body was rigid, her hands clamped over her ears, her eyes squeezed shut. Benita watched as guests walked past without a glance. Watched as a woman in diamonds actually laughed loudly right next to the child, not noticing or not caring about her distress. Watched as the girl's breathing became faster, more panicked. Her professional instincts kicked in immediately. Sensory overload. Too much noise, too many people, too much stimulation. The child was shutting down. Then Benita noticed the man. He stood on the opposite side of the hall, surrounded by people who seemed to lean toward him like plants seeking sunlight. Tall, broad shoulders, devastatingly handsome in the way of classical sculptures. His black suit was perfectly tailored. His dark hair was styled back from a face that revealed absolutely nothing. But his eyes kept returning to the little girl beneath the sculpture. And in those eyes, Benita saw something that made her chest ache. Helplessness. She didn't know who he was. Didn't know the name Kong Ji-hun or the empire his family controlled through violence and fear. Didn't know that he'd inherited a criminal syndicate at 25 and spent the last decade building walls so high that nothing could touch him. She only knew that a child was suffering and no one was helping. So she moved. The walk across that auction hall felt like miles. Benita could feel eyes turning toward her, could feel whispers starting, could sense that she was breaking some unspoken rule. She didn't care. She stopped a few feet from the sculpture, careful not to invade the child's space. Then she knelt slowly, making herself smaller, less threatening. "Hello," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Amara. It's very loud in here, isn't it?" The girl didn't respond. Her body stayed rigid, her hands pressed tight over her ears. "I don't like loud places either," Benita continued. "They make my head feel too full, like there's no room for my own thoughts." A slight shift in the girl's posture. Almost imperceptible, but there. "Would you like to go somewhere quieter?" Benita offered. "I saw a garden outside. It looked peaceful. Nothing." But the girl was listening. Benita could tell by the way her breathing had slowed slightly. She began to hum. Soft, low, a lullaby her grandmother had sung to her when she was small and the world felt too big. A song about stars and safety and being held. The girl's hands lowered slightly from her ears. "My grandmother used to sing this to me," Benita said quietly, still humming between words. She said music could make the world smaller when it felt too overwhelming. She extended her hand, palm up, resting it on her knee where the girl could see it without feeling pressured. "We could walk together if you'd like. Very slowly. No rushing." The silence stretched. Benita kept her breathing even, her posture relaxed. She'd done this before with dozens of children who'd forgotten how to trust. The key was patience. The key was proving through stillness that you weren't a threat. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Then, like a miracle, small fingers reached out and touched her palm. The auction hall didn't actually go silent, But Benita stopped hearing anything except her own heartbeat and the soft exhale of relief from the child in front of her. The girl's hand was ice cold. Her eyes were still downcast, but she was touching Benita voluntarily, choosing connection. Benita stood slowly, keeping her movements predictable and gentle. "Is it okay if we walk?" The slightest nod. They moved together toward the glass doors leading to the garden. Benita kept humming softly, kept their pace slow and steady. The girl walked beside her, her grip tightening and loosening like she was testing whether this was real. The garden was cooler, quieter. The sounds from the auction hall were muffled here. Benita led them to a bench beneath a cherry blossom tree. "Better?" she asked. The girl nodded again, this time more firmly. "Would you like to sit?" They sat together in comfortable silence. The girl's breathing had normalized. Her rigid posture had softened. She was still holding Benita's hand like it was the only solid thing in the universe. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to," Benita said gently. "Sometimes it's nice to just be quiet together. You're pretty." The words were so soft Benita almost missed them. She looked down at the girl, whose dark eyes were finally meeting hers. "Thank you. So are you. Appa says I'm difficult." Benita's heart clenched. Being sensitive to noise and crowds doesn't make you difficult. Makes you human. Some of us just feel things more strongly than others. No one else understands that. "I do," Benita said firmly. "And I promise you're not alone." They sat together for maybe 10 minutes. The girl told her name was Sua. She talked haltingly about how loud places made her chest hurt, how she could feel sounds inside her body, how she wished people would stop trying to fix her. Benita listened without interrupting, without offering solutions, just being present. When they finally returned to the auction hall, Benita found herself face to face with a man she'd noticed earlier. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. Sharp jaw, straight nose, full lips pressed into a line that suggested he rarely smiled. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow. His eyes were the darkest she'd ever seen, and they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Who are you?" His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. "Benita Gendry. I work for the trauma center." The new psychologist. It wasn't a question. "Yes. My daughter doesn't respond to strangers." Benita kept her voice calm. "She responded to me. I can see that." His gaze dropped to where Sua was still holding Benita's hand. Something flickered across his face. Vulnerability, quickly masked. "She hasn't let anyone outside our household touch her in 2 years. Maybe she was waiting for someone who understood what she needed." "And what does she need?" "To be heard without being fixed. To be accepted without being changed." Benita lifted her chin slightly. Children know the difference between people who see them as problems and people who see them as people. The silence between them felt charged. His dark eyes searched hers like he was trying to solve an equation. "Have dinner with me tomorrow," he said finally. "That sounds like a command." "It is. I don't take commands from people I just met." Something that might have been amusement crossed his face. "Then let me introduce myself properly. Kang Ji-hun. And by tomorrow night we won't be strangers." The next morning Benita Googled Kang Ji-hun. What she found made her stomach drop. Article after article about the Kang family's criminal empire. How they controlled half of Seoul's underground economy. How Ji-hun had taken over at 25 after his father's assassination and consolidated power through ruthless efficiency. They called him the Ice King. They said he'd never been seen smiling. They said people who crossed him disappeared. The articles about Sua were worse. They described her as troubled, damaged, the defective heir to a brutal empire. Tabloids speculated about her condition with cruel fascination, treating her selective mutism and sensory sensitivities like scandalous secrets rather than simple facts. Benita closed her laptop feeling sick. She should cancel dinner. Should stay far away from this man and his dangerous world. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sua's small hand reaching for hers. The relief in her face when someone finally understood. The look in Ji-hun's eyes. That devastating combination of hope and helplessness. Against every logical instinct, She picked up her phone and confirmed dinner. That evening, a black car arrived at her building exactly at 7. The driver opened her door without speaking. Inside, Ji-hoon was waiting. He wore dark gray tonight, slightly less formal but no less commanding. His eyes swept over her simple navy dress with an intensity that made heat rise to her cheeks. "You came," he said. "I almost didn't. I know. I had contingency plans." "What kind of contingency plans?" "The kind that would have made the evening significantly less pleasant for both of us." He gestured to the seat. "Please." She sat, maintaining as much distance as the space allowed. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere private." "Because of who you are. Because of what I am." His gaze held hers. "You researched me." "Yes. And you're here anyway." "I'm here for Suah." Something shifted in his expression. "Most people want something from me. Money. Protection. Power. I don't want any of that." "Then what do you want?" She considered carefully. "To understand why your daughter trusts me when she doesn't trust anyone else." "I've been asking myself the same question." He turned to look out at the city lights. "For 2 years I've brought in the best specialists. Therapists, doctors, researchers. She rejected all of them." "How?" "Screaming. Hiding. Once she threw herself through a window trying to escape a session." His voice was flat, but she heard the pain underneath. "The last therapist quit and suggested I institutionalize her." Benita's chest tightened. What happened to make her that afraid? Ji-hoon was silent for a long moment. "Her mother died when she was 4. An accident. I wasn't there." He stopped, his jaw working. "I was handling business. By the time I got home, Suah had spent 6 hours alone with her mother's body. No one knew. She'd locked herself in the bedroom. Oh God. She hasn't spoken normally since. Hasn't let strangers touch her. The specialists say she has selective mutism triggered by trauma. They say she may never recover fully." His hands clenched into fists on his knees. "They say I should accept that my daughter is broken." "She's not broken," Benita said fiercely. "She's hurt. There's a difference." His dark eyes snapped to hers. "Is there?" "Yes. Broken things can't heal. Hurt things can." The restaurant was the entire top floor of a building Ji-hoon owned. Private, elegant, empty except for them and staff who moved silently. They ate courses Benita couldn't pronounce. Drank wine she couldn't afford. But she barely tasted any of it, too focused on the man across from her. The careful control in every gesture. The glimpses of something softer that occasionally broke through. "Tell me about your work," he said. So she did. She explained trauma therapy. How children who experienced overwhelming events sometimes shut down as a survival mechanism. How the key was rebuilding their sense of safety slowly at their own pace. "You can't force healing," she said. "You can only create space for it to happen. And you think you can help Suah? I think it's worth trying. But it would take time. Consistency. I'd need to work with her regularly. Build trust gradually." He studied her with that unsettling intensity. "Name your terms." "I'm sorry. Whatever you need. Equipment, space, time. Name it. I already have a job. Then I'll fund an entire wing at the trauma center for you to run. Private. Whatever resources you need." His eyes burned. "I would do anything to help my daughter. If that means rebuilding the entire center around your methods, I'll do it. If it means flying in specialists from around the world, done. If it means rearranging my entire life to accommodate your schedule, I'll make it happen." The raw desperation in his voice stopped her protests. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let me work with her. 3 times a week at your home where she's comfortable. I'll create a program specifically for her. When can you start?" "Tomorrow if you want." The next day, Benita arrived at the Kong estate. Calling it an estate seemed insufficient. It was a compound. Multiple buildings spread across manicured grounds, surrounded by walls and security that looked military-grade. A housekeeper led her through marble hallways to a wing that had clearly been designed for Suah. The lighting was softer here. The colors muted. Someone had tried to create a calm, sensory-friendly space. Sua was waiting in a sunlit room filled with art supplies. She sat in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, watching Benita enter with cautious eyes. She didn't run. That was progress. "Hi, Sua," Benita said softly, settling on the floor several feet away. "Remember me?" No response. "I'm going to visit you sometimes if that's okay. We don't have to do anything you don't want. We can just sit together." She pulled paper and colored pencils from her bag. "Do you like to draw?" Silence. Benita began sketching. Nothing elaborate, just simple shapes and patterns. She hummed while she worked, the same lullaby from the auction. For 30 minutes nothing happened. Sua stayed in her corner. Benita stayed on the floor. The humming continued. Then, barely perceptible, Sua's hand reached out for a pencil. By the end of the first week, Sua started meeting Benita at the door. She still didn't speak much, still avoided direct eye contact, but she participated. She drew pictures and shared them. She listened when Benita talked. She even laughed once, a sound that made Benita's entire day. Ji-hoon watched from doorways, his expression unreadable. After sessions, he'd find her in the hallway with careful questions. "She drew a picture of us today," Benita told him once. "You, me and her. All holding hands. She's never included me in her drawings before." His voice was rough. "Never. She's including you now." His eyes held hers. "Because of you." The air felt thick, charged. Benita looked away first. "Same time tomorrow. Amara." Her name in his voice did something to her pulse. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We're just beginning." 2 weeks later the first threat arrived. Benita was leaving the compound when a black van cut off her taxi. Men in suits surrounded her car before she could process what was happening. "Miss Gendry." One of them smiled coldly. "Someone wants to speak with you." "Who?" "Get in the van and find out." Before she could respond, her door was yanked open. A cloth pressed against her mouth and nose. The world went dark. She woke in a warehouse. Concrete floors. Exposed beams. A man in an expensive suit sat across from her, middle-aged with silver hair and dead eyes. "Miss Gendry." Apologies for the dramatic retrieval, but discretion was necessary. "Who are you?" Her throat was raw. "Park Jun-suk. I'm a business rival of Kong Ji-hoon." He smiled without warmth. "Or I was before he decided to destroy my operations." Her blood ran cold. "I don't know anything about his business." "No, but you know his daughter. And recently, you've become very important to him." Park leaned forward. "Ji-hoon has one weakness. That damaged little girl of his. And now he has another. You. I'm nobody to him." "Is that so? Then why has he assigned protection details to your building? Why does he review footage of your sessions every night? Why does his entire household know your name?" Her mind reeled. Protection details. Footage. "I see you didn't know." Park laughed softly. "Kong Ji-hoon is obsessed with you, Miss Gendry. And obsession is a vulnerability I intend to exploit." That night, Ji-hoon received a video call. Park's face filled the screen. "I have something of yours. The African woman. Pretty thing. Would be a shame if something happened to her." Ji-hoon's world narrowed to a single point of rage. "If you touch her, relax. She's unharmed. For now." Park's smile was cruel. "I want a meeting. Tomorrow night. The old port district. Come alone or she dies." The call ended. For 10 seconds, Ji-hoon stood completely still. Then he turned to his head of security, Lee Min-jun. "Find her," he said, his voice like ice over steel. "Mobilize everyone. I don't care what it costs. Find her now." "Sir, it could be a trap." "I know it's a trap." His hands clenched so tight his knuckles went white. "I don't care. She's not dying because of me. Not her." Min-jun studied his boss's face and saw something he'd never seen before. Fear. "We'll find her," he promised. In the warehouse, Benita waited. Park had left hours ago, leaving her with 2 guards who looked bored. She'd tested her restraints. Too tight. No escape. So she did the only thing she could. He thought about Sua. her small hand reaching for the pencil. The way she'd started smiling during their sessions. The picture she'd drawn of the three of them together. If Benita died here, Sua would lose another person. Another woman who came into her life and disappeared. She refused to let that happen. The rescue came at dawn. Gunfire shattered the warehouse silence. Shouting. Bodies hitting concrete. Benita pressed herself against the wall as the doors exploded inward. Ji-hun stood silhouetted in the doorway. Blood spattered his white shirt. His eyes were wild, desperate, searching until they found her. Amara. Her name was a prayer. He crossed the space in 3 strides, cutting her restraints with shaking hands. Are you hurt? Did they? I'm okay. Her voice cracked. I'm okay. He pulled her against his chest so tightly she could barely breathe. His heart thundered beneath her ear. His whole body trembled. I thought I lost you, he whispered into her hair. I thought. You found me. She clutched his jacket. You came for me. I will always come for you. He pulled back, cupping her face in blood-stained hands. Always. The following week was brutal. Park Jun-suk disappeared. His organization was dismantled piece by piece. Ji-hun was ruthless in his retaliation. Anyone connected to the kidnapping vanished. Anyone who had known and failed to warn him faced consequences. The message was clear. Touch what belongs to Kong Ji-hun, and there is nowhere you can hide. Benita should have been horrified. Instead, she felt only relief. And something else. Something that felt dangerously like belonging. She moved into the estate 3 days later. For your safety, Ji-hun insisted. This feels extreme. It's necessary. His jaw was tight. Until every threat is eliminated, you stay where I can see you. Where you can see me or where your security team can see me. He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. You know about the protection detail. Park told me. Right before he explained how obsessed you are with me. He wasn't wrong. Ji-hun's dark eyes held hers. I am obsessed with you. The confession hung between them. Heavy. Undeniable. Why? She asked softly. Because you saw my daughter when everyone else looked away. Because you're the first person in years who doesn't want something from me. Because, he stopped, jaw working. Because you make me feel things I thought I'd buried with my wife. Her breath caught. Ji-hun. I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I know my world is dangerous. I just needed you to know. That night, she lay awake in the guest room thinking about his words. About the way he looked at her. About how safe she felt in this compound surrounded by armed guards and a man with blood on his hands. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt more at home than she had in years. The weeks that followed were transformative. Sua's progress accelerated beyond anything the specialists had predicted. She started speaking in full sentences. She began attending art therapy sessions with other children. She even asked if she could go to school. A real school, she told Benita seriously. With other kids. That's wonderful, Benita said, her heart soaring. We'll find the right one for you. Will you help me get ready? Every step of the way. Ji-hun watched his daughter blossom with an expression of wonder. You gave her a future, he told Benita one evening. She gave herself a future. I just held space for it to happen. You do that for everyone, don't you? He moved closer. Hold space. Make room for people to become who they're meant to be. I try. You succeed. His hand found hers. You certainly succeeded with me. The attraction between them had been building for weeks. Every accidental touch. Every lingering look. Every conversation that lasted too long. Benita tried to rationalize it away. He was technically her employer. He was a criminal. He was completely wrong for her. But when he looked at her, she forgot every reason she should stay away. You're staring, she said one evening. I know. Why? Because I'm trying to memorize you. The way the light hits your face. The way you bite your lip when you're thinking. The way you look at Sua like she's the most precious thing in the world. Ji-hun. Tell me to stop. His voice was rough. Tell me you don't feel this and I'll walk away. I'll keep things professional. I can't. The words escaped before she could stop them. I feel it too. His sharp intake of breath was audible. Amara, I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons this is a terrible idea. He kissed her. The kiss was everything. Fire and tenderness. Hunger and reverence. His hands in her hair. Her fingers gripping his shoulders. Both of them drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, his forehead pressed against hers. I've wanted to do that since the night I watched you kneel before my daughter, he admitted. That was months ago. I know. It's been torture. His thumb traced her jawline. Stay with me tonight. Her heart hammered. Ji-hoon. Just stay. We don't have to do anything. I just want you close. She should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries. Instead, she took his hand and let him lead her upstairs. That night, the world narrowed to just the two of them. His hands exploring her curves. Her fingers mapping his scars. Whispered confessions and breathless sighs. The overwhelming rightness of being in his arms. When they finally came together, it felt like every moment of her life had been leading to this. Afterward, she lay against his chest listening to his heartbeat slow. Stay, he murmured. Not just tonight. Stay. I'm not going anywhere, she promised. But even as she said it, old fears crept in. She wasn't enough. She was damaged, broken. When he woke up and saw her clearly, he'd realize his mistake. She fell asleep with tears on her cheeks. The next morning she was gone. Ji-hoon woke to empty sheets and a note on the pillow. I'm sorry. I can't be what you need. Please tell Sue I'm sorry too. For a long moment he didn't move. Then the rage came. Cold. Controlled. Absolute. He called Minjun. Where is she? Sir. Amara. Where did she go? We tracked her to the airport. She booked a flight to Lagos. Stop her. Sir, if she wants to leave. She's running. His voice was ice. She's scared. And I'm not letting fear take her from me. 2 hours later, Ji-hoon walked through Incheon Airport with single-minded purpose. He found her at the gate, clutching a coffee cup with white-knuckled hands. She looked up as he approached and her face crumpled. Don't, she whispered. Please just let me go. No. He sat beside her. Help me understand why you're running. Because you'll regret me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You'll wake up one day and realize I'm not special. I'm just a broken woman who got lucky with your daughter. Is that what you think? It's what I know. Everyone leaves eventually. Everyone realizes I'm not worth staying for. His jaw tightened. Who hurt you this badly? So she told him. About losing her parents young. About the uncle who'd taken her in and made her feel like a burden. About the boyfriend who'd promised forever and disappeared when things got hard. About the fiancé who'd called her too damaged to marry. I'm not whole, she finished. I have cracks all through me and you deserve someone who isn't held together with hope and stubbornness. Ji-hoon was quiet for a long moment. Then he took her hand. Let me tell you what I see, he said softly. I see a woman who survived things that would have destroyed anyone else. I see someone who took every broken piece and built something beautiful. I see the only person in 2 years who made my daughter feel safe. His thumb traced her knuckles. You think your scars make you weak. They make you strong. They make you capable of understanding pain in ways people like me never could. His voice dropped. I've spent my life building walls, making myself untouchable. And then you walked into that auction and touched my daughter like she was precious. And every wall I'd built came down. Ji-hoon, I'm not finished. His dark eyes burned. You asked if I'd regret you. The answer is never. Not today. Not in 50 years. The only thing I'd regret is letting you get on that plane believing you're not worth fighting for. The tears came harder. You can't promise that. I can. Because I've never felt this way about anyone. He cupped her face. My wife, I loved her. She was good and kind and she deserved better than me. But this, what I feel for you, terrifies me, keeps me awake. It makes me want to be better than what I am. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. He pressed his forehead to hers. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. 3 hours later, they were back at the estate. Sua met them at the door, her small face crumpling when she saw Amara. You left, she said. Her voice shook. I woke up and you were gone. Benita knelt before her, heartbreaking. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I made a mistake. Are you leaving again? No. She glanced at Jihun, who watched them with an expression that made her chest ache. I'm not leaving again. I promise. Sua studied her face with those two perceptive eyes. Then she nodded and wrapped her arms around Benita's neck. Good, she said. Because I need you to stay forever. Benita laughed through tears, hugging her tightly. Forever sounds perfect. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Benita stopped fighting her feelings and let herself fall. She woke in Jihun's arms, ate breakfast with Sua, spent her days doing work that mattered. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. Jihun was attentive in ways that constantly surprised her. He remembered how she liked her tea, her favorite foods, the way she hummed when she was content. He sat in on Sua's sessions, not to supervise but to participate. You're terrible at drawing, Benita observed one afternoon, watching him struggle with a stick figure. I'm excellent at many things. Art is not one of them. Appa is really bad, Sua agreed solemnly. Jihun clutched his chest dramatically. Betrayed by my own daughter. Sua giggled, a sound that still made Benita's heart sore. 3 months later, trouble started again. Whispers circulated through Seoul's elite circles about the African woman who'd infiltrated the Kong household. They called her a gold digger, an opportunist, a nobody who'd seduced her way into power. Benita tried to ignore it. But then the tabloids picked it up. Gangster's foreign mistress. Who is Benita Gendry? The article detailed her history with vicious precision. Her parents' death, her uncle's rejection, her failed engagement. They framed everything as evidence of instability. Sources say she targeted Kong Jihun through his vulnerable daughter, the article claimed, using her position as a therapist to gain access to one of Korea's wealthiest families. That evening, Benita found Jihun in his office, staring at his laptop with an expression of cold fury. You've seen it, she said quietly. I'm going to destroy them. His voice was ice. Every publication that ran this story. Every source that talked. Every single person involved. Jihun. They called you a gold digger. They implied you're using Sua. He looked up and she saw barely controlled rage in his eyes. They tried to turn the most important thing in my life into something dirty. It's just gossip. It'll fade. It won't fade. It'll follow you everywhere. He stood, crossing to her. Unless I make it very clear what happens to people who attack my family. Your family. Yes. His grip tightened on her hands. My family. Imisua. That's what we are. And I protect my family at any cost. The following week, Chairman Lee made his move. He was one of Jihun's oldest rivals, a businessman with legitimate fronts and illegitimate ambitions. He'd been waiting for weakness. He thought he'd found it in Amara. The approach came at a hospital fundraiser. Benita was briefly separated from her security detail when Lee appeared at her side. Miss Gendry. We haven't been properly introduced. His smile was predatory. I know who you are. Then you know I'm a reasonable man who appreciates mutually beneficial arrangements. Her skin crawled. What kind of arrangements? Information mostly. About Jihun's operations. His schedule. His weaknesses. Lee leaned closer. In exchange, I could make those tabloid stories disappear. Restore your reputation. Even provide enough money for you to start fresh somewhere else. You're asking me to betray him. I'm offering you an escape route. His eyes glittered. Because this fairy tale won't last. Men like Kong Jihun don't keep women like you. When he's done, you'll have nothing. Benita held his gaze without flinching. Men like you always underestimate women like me. Is that a refusal? That's a promise. He stepped back. Touch me again, approach me again, and I'll make sure Jihun knows exactly what you offered. Lee's smile turned cold. You're making a mistake, Miss Gendry. I doubt it. That night she told Ji-hun everything. His response was immediate and terrifying. Calls were made. Orders issued. By morning, Chairman Lee's business empire was under siege. Investigations launched. Assets frozen. Allies abandoning him. Was this necessary? Benita asked, watching news coverage of Lee's collapse. He threatened you. Ji-hun's voice was flat. He tried to use you against me. There's no version of this where he walks away. I could have handled it myself. I know. He turned to her, expression softening slightly. But you shouldn't have to. That's what having a partner means. Facing threats together. Partner. The word hung between them. Is that what we are? I'd like us to be more than that. He moved closer. But I'm trying not to rush you. What if I don't want you to hold back? His breath caught. Amara, I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of protecting myself from happiness because I'm afraid it won't last. She stepped into his space. I want to be your partner, your family, whatever you'll let me be. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. 6 months later, on the anniversary of the night they met, Ji-hun took Benita back to the Shilla Hotel. They stood in the same auction hall, now empty and quiet. Moonlight streamed through tall windows. Do you remember? He asked softly. Every moment. She moved to the spot where she'd first seen Sua. She was right here. So small, so scared. Invisible to everyone. Not to you. No, never to me. She turned to face him. I didn't know that kneeling before one frightened child would lead me to an entire beautiful life. She was never broken, Ji-hun said. Just waiting for someone who could see her clearly. Like you were. Like I was. He pulled her close, swaying gently even without music. You saw me, Amara. Past the reputation and the violence and the walls. You saw me and chose to stay. You made it easy. I really didn't. She laughed. You were terrifying. And now you're mine. She looked up at him, heart overflowing. The father to my heart's daughter. The partner of my soul. The man I choose every single day. For how long? Forever. She rose on her toes, brushing her lips against his. And whatever comes after forever too. 2 years later, Sua stood at her school's art exhibition, beaming with pride beside her displayed paintings. She was 10 now, confident and articulate, thriving in ways no one had predicted. That one's my favorite, she told Amara, pointing to a painting of 3 figures holding hands beneath a starry sky. It's us. Our family. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Ji-hun stood beside them, his arm around Benita's waist. Just like you. I'm going to be an art therapist when I grow up, Sua announced. Like Amara. I want to help other kids who feel different. You'll be amazing at it, Benita said, her voice thick with emotion. You already are. Later that evening, after Sua had fallen asleep clutching her exhibition medal, Benita found Ji-hun in the garden. She's incredible, he said quietly. What you've done for her. What we've done, she corrected. We're a team, remember? A team. He smiled, pulling a small box from his pocket. Actually, I was hoping we could make that official. Benita's breath caught. Ji-hun, I've been carrying this for months, waiting for the right moment. But every moment with you feels right. He opened the box, revealing a ring. Elegant, understated, with a diamond that caught the moonlight. Marry me, Amara. Not because I saved you or because you saved Sua, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because you made me believe I could be more than my father's legacy. Because loving you is the only thing I've ever done that feels entirely, completely right. Tears streamed down her face. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like home. The wedding was held 3 months later. Small and intimate, just family and close friends. Sua served as maid of honor, her face serious with responsibility as she carried the rings. Benita wore white silk that complemented her dark skin. Her natural hair styled in intricate braids woven with gold thread. She'd chosen to leave her shoulder scar visible, the one from the kidnapping. It's part of our story, she told Ji-hun. I don't want to hide it. He'd looked at her with such fierce pride that she'd nearly cried right there. The ceremony was brief, the vows heartfelt. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Sua cheered loudly. She's my real Amma now, she announced to everyone present. Forever and always. Benita knelt before her, taking her hands. Forever and always, she confirmed. I promise. The years that followed were the happiest of Benita's life. She expanded her work at the trauma center, training other therapists in her methods. She published research. She spoke at conferences. She advocated for better understanding of trauma and neurodivergence. Ji-hun continued transitioning his business toward legitimacy. It wasn't easy. Some associates resisted, some relationships ended, but he was determined to build something Sua could inherit with pride. I want to leave her a legacy she can be proud of, he told Benita one night. Not a legacy she has to overcome. She's already proud of you, Benita said. But I'm proud of you too. To thrive. She graduated top of her class. She got into one of Seoul's best art schools. She began volunteering at the trauma center, helping other children the way Benita had helped her. You know what's funny? She said one evening at dinner. She was 16 now, poised and confident. What's that, sweetheart? I used to think being different meant being broken. But you taught me it just means seeing the world in my own way. She looked between Benita and Ji-hun. You both taught me that. You taught us just as much, Ji-hun said quietly. More than you know. When Benita was 38, she found out she was pregnant. She'd never thought she'd have biological children. Had never felt that particular desire. But staring at those two pink lines, she felt overwhelming joy mixed with terror. What if I'm not good at this? She asked Ji-hun that night. What if I mess up? Then we'll mess up together. He pulled her close. But I don't think you will. You're already the best mother I know. Sua will always be my first child, she said firmly. Blood or not. I know. And she knows too. Their daughter arrived 7 months later, a week early, as if impatient to meet the world. They named her Nia, meaning purpose. She had Ji-hun's dark eyes and Benita's determined chin. Sua, now 17, was completely smitten. She's perfect, she whispered, holding her baby sister with reverent care. Absolutely perfect. Just like her big sister, Benita said. The family felt complete. Whole in ways Benita had never imagined possible. 5 years later, on a warm spring evening, Ji-hun found Benita in the garden. She was watching their daughters play. Sua, now 22 and in graduate school, was teaching 5-year-old Nia how to paint. Do you remember the first night we met? He asked, settling beside her. Every detail. You stood across that hall looking so lost while watching Sua suffer. She leaned against his shoulder. I thought you were the coldest man I'd ever seen. And now I know the truth. You weren't cold. You were breaking. And you didn't know how to show it. You taught me how. He kissed her temple. You taught me that showing emotion isn't weakness. That vulnerability is strength. That love is worth every risk. You taught me things too. She turned to face him. That I deserved to be chosen. That my scars didn't make me less. That family isn't just blood. It's choosing each other every single day. We've built something beautiful, haven't we? We have. She watched their daughters, her heart full to bursting. Against every odd. Despite every obstacle. We built this. Flo looked up then, catching them watching. She smiled. That same smile that had been so hard 1 year ago, now given freely and often. Umpa. Come paint with us. Coming. Benita called back. As they walked toward their daughters, Ji-hun caught her hand. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For seeing my daughter when no one else would. For seeing me when I'd forgotten how to be seen. For building this life with me. Thank you for letting me. She squeezed his hand. For trusting me with your daughter's heart. For giving me a family when I'd lost hope of ever having one. For choosing me every day. Chosen each other. Again and again they'd chosen love over fear, connection over safety, hope over despair. Their story had begun with a simple question. Do you want to come with me somewhere quieter? It would continue as long as they had breath, growing, evolving, deepening with each passing year. Because some loves are too powerful for endings. Some families are built not on blood but on choice. And some promises, like forever, are meant to be kept. If you've made it this far, you're part of the Afro-Korean Stories TV family now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we're just getting started. Drop a comment telling us what moment hit you hardest. Was it Benita's rescue, Sua's first words, or that proposal under the stars? And smash that like button if you believe love can cross any border and heal any wound. This is Afro-Korean Stories TV, where every ending is really just a beginning. We'll see you in the next story.